I thought I knew what heartbreak felt like. I buried my husband at 43. I survived breast cancer at 51. I watched my mother fade away in a nursing home, forgetting my name before she forgot how to breathe. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the moment my own son erased me from the most important day of his life. It started with a phone call I almost didn't answer. Before I go any further, I need you to do something for me. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, leave a comment below telling me where you're watching from. And please, check the description box for more stories like this one. Because what I'm about to tell you, what happened to me, it's the kind of truth that needs to be shared. The kind that reminds us we're not alone in our pain. Now, where was I? Yes. The phone call. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late September. I remember because I just finished planting chrysanthemums in the front garden, the rust-colored ones that reminded me of Robert's eyes. My son's eyes. The doorbell could have rung. A text could have come through. But no, it was an old-fashioned phone call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost sent it to voicemail. My hands were covered in soil, my knees aching from kneeling on the cold ground. But something made me answer. Mrs. Patterson? The voice was young, female, uncertain. Yes? Who's calling? This is Jenny from Willowbrook Catering. I'm calling to confirm the final guest count for the Patterson-Morrison wedding this Saturday. We have you down for vegetarian, is that still correct? The world tilted. I actually looked around my kitchen, as if the walls might explain what I'd just heard. I'm sorry, what wedding? There was a pause. A long, awful pause where I could hear papers shuffling, someone typing. The Patterson-Morrison wedding? Robert Patterson and Melissa Morrison? This Saturday at 2 o'clock at the Riverside Estate. My son's name. His fiancée's name. This Saturday. There must be some mistake, I heard myself say, my voice sounding like it was coming from underwater. I haven't received an invitation. Another pause. This one felt different. Heavier. Oh, I'm so sorry, Mrs. Patterson. I must have the wrong information in our system. I apologize for bothering you. She hung up before I could say another word. I stood there in my kitchen, dirt still under my fingernails, staring at my phone like it had just bitten me. My hands started shaking. Not a little tremor, a full-body shake that made me grab the counter to steady myself. Robert was getting married. This Saturday. 4 days away. And nobody had told me. I want you to understand something. Robert was my only child. My miracle baby after 3 miscarriages that nearly destroyed me. I'd raised him alone after his father died. Worked 2 jobs to put him through college, sat in hospital waiting rooms during his appendectomy, taught him to drive, helped him move into his first apartment. I wasn't a perfect mother. God knows I made mistakes. But I loved that boy with every atom of my being. And he was getting married in 4 days without telling me. I called him immediately. My fingers were shaking so badly I had to try 3 times to hit his contact. It rang. And rang. And rang. Then voicemail. His voice, cheerful and distant. Hey, it's Rob. Leave a message. Rob. When did he become Rob instead of Robert? When did he start sounding like a stranger? Robert, it's your mother. I just got a very strange phone call from a caterer. Please call me back immediately. I tried to keep my voice steady. Professional. Like I was inquiring about a dentist appointment, not the fact that my son had cut me out of the most significant moment of his life. He didn't call back that day. Or that night. I barely slept. I kept picking up my phone, putting it down, picking it up again. Around 2 in the morning, I did something I'm not proud of. I drove to his apartment across town. The nice one in the renovated warehouse district that I'd helped him with the down payment on, though he'd never quite acknowledged that. His car was in the parking garage. The lights were off in his unit. He was home. He was deliberately not answering me. I sat in my car in that parking garage for almost an hour, crying so hard I thought I might be sick. The security guard finally tapped on my window and asked if I was all right. I lied and said I was fine, then drove home at 3 in the morning, my eyes so swollen I could barely see the road. The next day, I called Melissa. We'd never been close, but we'd been cordial. She was a corporate attorney, sharp and polished in a way that always made me feel small and outdated in my modest librarian cardigans. But she'd always been polite to my face. She answered on the first ring. "Hi, Diane." Her voice was clipped, busy. "Melissa, I need to talk to Robert. He's not returning my calls. He's in meetings all day. Can I help you with something?" The casual dismissal in her tone made something inside me crack. "I got a call from your caterer yesterday. About the wedding this Saturday." Silence. Not shocked silence. Knowing silence. "I see," she finally said. "You see? That's all you have to say? I'm his mother, Melissa. His only parent. And I find out about his wedding from a catering company. Diane, this is really something you need to discuss with Robert." "I'm trying to discuss it with Robert. He won't answer my calls. I have to go. I have a meeting." And she hung up. I stood there in my living room, the phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone. That's when I knew. This wasn't an oversight. This wasn't some mistake with the invitation getting lost in the mail. This was intentional. My son had decided I didn't deserve to be at his wedding. But I didn't know why. And that not knowing, that complete bewilderment, it ate at me like acid. I went through every conversation we'd had over the past year, searching for the moment I'd failed him. Had I said something wrong at Thanksgiving? Been too critical? Too overbearing? I tried so hard to give him space after he got engaged, not to be one of those mothers who inserted themselves into every decision. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe I'd given him too much space, and he'd filled it with reasons to forget about me. By Friday, the day before the wedding, I still hadn't heard from him. I'd left 6 more voicemails. I'd sent texts. I'd even sent an email, pouring my heart out, begging him just to tell me what I'd done wrong. Nothing. That's when I made a decision. I would go to the wedding. Uninvited, yes. But I was his mother. I had a right to see my son get married, didn't I? Even if I had to stand in the back. Even if I had to watch from the doorway. I couldn't let this moment pass without at least trying to be there. I spent Friday evening preparing. I pressed my nicest dress, a soft blue one that Robert had once said made my eyes look pretty. I practiced what I would say if someone tried to stop me. I mapped out the route to the Riverside estate. I barely ate. My stomach was a knot of nerves and desperate hope. But Saturday morning, something stopped me. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the last shred of dignity I had left. I couldn't crash my son's wedding like some desperate, pathetic woman. I couldn't give him, or Melissa, or all their friends and her family, the satisfaction of seeing me beg for a place I should have been given freely. So I stayed home. I sat in my living room in that blue dress, staring at the clock. At 2 o'clock, I poured myself a glass of wine. At 2:30, I imagined them saying their vows. At 3, I pictured the kiss, the applause, the joy on his face that I would never see. At 3:30, I took off the dress and put on my pajamas in the middle of the afternoon. And I waited. For an apology. For an explanation. For something. A week passed. Then another day. The wound was still fresh, still bleeding, when I decided to try one more time. I called Robert on a Sunday afternoon, 9 days after his wedding. 9 days of silence. This time, he answered. "Mom." His voice was flat. "Robert." Mine was shaking. "Son, I am so happy about your wedding tomorrow." The words came out wrong. Scrambled. I meant to say something else, something about wishing I'd been there, but my brain couldn't organize the hurt into coherent sentences. He fell silent. Completely, utterly silent. And then I heard it. In the background. Melissa's voice, bright and sharp and cruel. She was laughing. Not a gentle chuckle. A full, mocking laugh. Then her voice came closer, like she'd taken the phone from him. "The wedding was a week ago, Diane. A week ago." The tone in her voice wasn't just dismissive. It was triumphant. Like she'd been waiting for this moment, this chance to twist the knife just a little deeper. I should have hung up. should have preserved whatever dignity I had left. But I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. I just stood there frozen, while Melissa continued. You really didn't know? Wow. That's actually kind of sad, Diane. Then the line went dead. I don't remember dropping the phone. I don't remember sitting down. But suddenly I was on the floor of my kitchen, my back against the cabinet, making sounds I didn't recognize. Animal sounds, grief sounds, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere so deep you didn't know it existed. My son had married a week ago. And not only had he not invited me, he'd made sure I didn't even know the correct date. The catering company calling had been an accident, some administrative error that had briefly pulled back the curtain on just how thoroughly I'd been erased. If you've ever been completely blindsided by someone you love, you know that feeling. That sensation that the ground beneath you isn't solid anymore, that everything you thought you knew was just a story you'd been telling yourself. If you do, please, hit that subscribe button. Because you understand why I'm sharing this. Why stories like mine need to be told. Check the description box below for more stories that'll remind you you're not alone. I don't know how long I sat on that floor. Long enough that my legs went numb. Long enough that the sunlight shifted across the kitchen tiles and disappeared. When I finally pulled myself up, it was dark outside. I felt hollowed out. Empty. But somewhere in that emptiness, something else was growing. Not grief anymore. Something harder. Sharper. Anger. I wanted answers. No, I deserved answers. So I did what any mother would do in the age of social media. I opened my laptop and searched for Melissa's Facebook page. She'd blocked me. I tried Instagram. Blocked there too. But Robert hadn't blocked me. Robert had just stopped posting anything public. Everything was set to friends only now, and I wasn't on that list anymore. So I created a fake account. I'm not proud of it. But desperation makes you do things you never thought you'd do. I used my middle name, Marie, and a photo of a flower instead of my face. I sent friend requests to people I knew from Robert's life. Old college friends, co-workers, distant relatives. 3 people accepted. That was enough. And that's how I found the photos. The wedding had been beautiful. Of course it had. The riverside estate with its manicured gardens and string lights. Melissa in a dress that probably cost more than my car. Robert in a navy suit, smiling wider than I'd seen him smile in years. I scrolled through dozens of photos. The ceremony. The reception. The first dance. The cake cutting. Both of Melissa's parents were there, beaming in the front row. Her entire extended family, it looked like. Robert's college friends. His co-workers. Even people I didn't recognize. But know me. It wasn't like I'd been edited out of photos. I'd never been there to begin with. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. It was a group photo, clearly taken at a pre-wedding dinner. Maybe the rehearsal dinner. Robert and Melissa at the center, surrounded by their wedding party and family. And there, in the comments section below the photo, was an exchange that stopped my heart. Someone had written, "Such a perfect night with all the people who matter most. Red heart." And Melissa had replied, "Exactly. Just the people who actually support us and our future." Another comment, from one of her friends, "Love that you kept it intimate and drama-free." Melissa's response, "That was the goal. No toxic energy allowed on our special day." Toxic energy. That's what I was to them. Toxic. I read through more comments, more posts, piecing together a narrative I hadn't known existed. Apparently, there had been a whole storyline I wasn't privy to. Melissa had been telling people, their friends, their social circle, that I was overbearing. Controlling. That I'd tried to take over the wedding planning and make everything about myself. None of it was true. I'd barely been involved at all. I'd asked a few questions about dates and venues early on, offered to help with costs if they needed it, and then backed off entirely when Melissa made it clear she had everything handled. But somehow, in Melissa's retelling, I'd become a villain. The monster-in-law. The nightmare mother who needed to be cut out for the sake of their happiness. And Robert, my son, my sweet boy who used to hold my hand crossing the street, who used to tell me I was his best friend, Robert had believed her. Or worse, He'd gone along with it because it was easier than standing up for me. I spent 3 days going through every post, every photo, every comment I could find. I was looking for something, though I didn't know what. Proof, maybe. Evidence of my crimes. Some concrete reason for why I deserved this. But all I found were more half-truths and exaggerations. Stories about things I'd supposedly said or done that were either wildly distorted or completely fabricated. There was one post in particular that broke me. It was from Melissa's Instagram, posted 2 weeks before the wedding. A photo of her and her mother, both of them in some bridal boutique, laughing. The caption read, "So grateful to have a mother-in-law who truly understands boundaries and knows how to be supportive without being intrusive. Some of us aren't so lucky, but I found the best mother-in-law in the world, my own mom. Hashtag blessed, hashtag momendaughter, hashtag wedding planning." She'd tagged her mother. Not me. And why would she? I'd been written out of the story entirely. The comments section was full of people agreeing, sharing their own nightmare mother-in-law stories. And I realized, Melissa had cultivated this narrative for months, maybe years. She'd positioned me as the villain long before the wedding, so when the invitations went out without my name, nobody questioned it. Everyone just accepted that, of course, the toxic mother wasn't invited. I closed my laptop and sat in the dark for a long time. Here's what nobody tells you about betrayal: it's not just the act itself. It's the realization that comes after. The understanding that the person you loved never quite saw you the way you saw them. That maybe they never loved you at all, not really. They loved a version of you that served them, and the moment you stopped being useful, or worse, the moment someone convinced them you were a burden, you became disposable. I'd given Robert everything. My time, my money, my energy, my whole heart. I'd shaped my entire adult life around being his mother. And he'd thrown me away like I was nothing. That's when the anger stopped being just anger. It became something else. Something colder and more deliberate. I wanted them to understand what they'd done. I wanted consequences. Not just for me, though yes, for me too, but because what they'd done was cruel, and cruelty shouldn't go unanswered. But I didn't want some petty revenge. I didn't want to slash tires or send nasty letters or air their dirty laundry on social media. I wanted something bigger. Something that would make them feel even a fraction of what I felt. I just needed to figure out what that was. It took me 2 more days to come up with a plan. And when it finally crystallized in my mind, it was so simple, so perfect, I actually smiled for the first time since that phone call from the caterer. See, I'd been handling Robert's finances for years. Not because I was controlling, but because he'd asked me to. He was terrible with money, always had been. He'd racked up credit card debt in college, nearly lost his car to repossession in his 20s. When he asked me to help him get organized, to help him save for a house, I'd said yes because that's what mothers do. I had access to his savings account. Not joint access. He'd added me as an authorized user years ago when he was traveling for work and needed someone who could handle things in an emergency. He'd never removed me. That account had about $40,000 in it. Money he'd been saving for years. Money I'd helped him save, actually, by teaching him how to budget, how to invest, how to build toward a future. I transferred it all to a new account. One he couldn't access. One only I controlled. Then I waited. It took them 3 days to notice the money was gone. I knew it would happen eventually. Robert checked his bank account obsessively when he remembered to, which wasn't often, but Melissa was the type who tracked every dollar. I'd figured she'd be reviewing their finances now that they were married, combining accounts, planning their future. I was right. The first call came at 7 in the morning on a Thursday. I was having coffee on my back porch, watching the birds at the feeder, when my phone rang. Robert's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring. Sipped my coffee. Let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, he called again. I didn't answer. Then came the text messages. Mom, I need you to call me right away. Mom, this is serious. Call me now. Where is the money from my savings account? Mom, answer your phone. I turned my phone face down and finished my coffee. I wasn't being spiteful. Well, maybe a little. But mostly, I needed them to sit with it. To feel the panic, the helplessness, the desperate confusion of not understanding what was happening. The way I'd felt standing in my kitchen, learning about my son's wedding from a stranger. By noon, there were 17 missed calls. Robert, Melissa, even a number I didn't recognize that I assumed was one of their friends. The texts had evolved from demanding to pleading to threatening. "We're going to call the police. This is theft. You can't just take someone's money." That last one almost made me laugh. Couldn't I? He'd put me on the account. The bank saw me as an authorized user. I hadn't broken any laws. Morally questionable? Sure. Illegal? Not even close. At 4 o'clock, I finally called him back. "Where's my money?" No hello. No pretense of civility. Just raw panic. "Hello, Robert. How was the wedding?" Silence. "Mom, this isn't funny. You stole $40,000 from me." "I didn't steal anything. I transferred money from an account I'm authorized to access. That's my money. I saved that." "We saved that. I taught you how to save it, actually. I helped you set up the budget. I walked you through the investment strategy. But you're right, it was yours. Just like I was yours. Your mother. Someone who deserved to be part of your life. This is insane. You're insane." There it was. The word I'd been waiting for. When people don't want to take accountability, they make you crazy instead. They rewrite the story so they're the victim. Am I? Or am I just someone who's finally standing up for herself after being treated like garbage by her own child? "Mom," his voice cracked, and for a second, he sounded like a little boy again. "Please. We need that money. We're supposed to close on a house next month. The down payment." Let me guess. Melissa picked out something expensive. Something in her parents' neighborhood. Something that would require every penny you'd saved. That's not fair. You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about fair, Robert. Let's talk about how I found out about your wedding. Let's talk about being called toxic energy by your wife. Let's talk about fair. I could hear Melissa in the background, her voice sharp and insistent. "Robert, hang up. We're calling our lawyer." "Good luck with that," I said. "I didn't break any laws. But you know what? I'll make you a deal." "What deal?" His voice was desperate now. "You come to my house. Both of you. You sit down with me face to face, and you explain to me exactly what I did to deserve being erased from your wedding. You give me real answers, not whatever stories Melissa's been spreading. And maybe, we can talk about the money." This is blackmail. No, sweetheart. This is consequences. You made a choice. Now you get to live with it. Come see me, or good luck with that house. I hung up before he could respond. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where you finally fought back, and it felt terrible and wonderful at the same time? Where you knew you were crossing lines, but those lines had been crossed against you first. If you have, you understand. And if you're watching this right now, wondering if you're wrong for standing up for yourself, you're not. Hit that like button if you need to hear that today. And check the description box. I promise there are more stories there that'll make you feel less alone. I didn't hear from them for 2 days. I assumed they were consulting lawyers, looking for loopholes, trying to find a way to get the money back without having to face me. But then, on Saturday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. Robert and Melissa stood on my porch, both of them looking exhausted. Robert's hands were shoved in his pockets. Melissa's arms were crossed, her jaw tight. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. "We're here," Robert said quietly. "So you are. Can we come in?" I stepped aside, let them enter. They stood awkwardly in my living room, the room where Robert had grown up, where he'd played with Legos on this same carpet, where I'd read him bedtime stories on that same couch. Now he looked at everything like he was in a stranger's home. "Sit," I said. They sat. I remained standing. "So, let's hear it. What did I do that was so terrible I didn't deserve an invitation to my own son's wedding?" Robert looked at Melissa. She looked at the floor. We thought it would be easier, Melissa finally said. Easier for who? For everyone. You and I, we don't always see eye to eye, Diane. And I didn't want any tension on our wedding day. Tension from what? From me existing. You have a way of making things about yourself, Melissa continued, her voice gaining confidence. Every conversation about the wedding, you had an opinion. About the venue, the date, the guest list. I asked questions. I was trying to be involved. You were trying to control everything. I asked if you needed help with costs. I asked when the wedding was so I could request time off work. I asked if there was anything I could do. That's not controlling, that's being a mother. That's your version, Melissa shot back. But from where I was standing, you were constantly inserting yourself where you weren't wanted. So you decided I wasn't wanted at all. We decided we wanted a drama-free wedding. And yes, that meant keeping the guest list limited to people who were fully supportive of our relationship. I've always been supportive of your relationship. You told Robert he was moving too fast, Melissa said. You told him he should wait to get engaged. I stared at her. He asked my opinion. He called me upset, saying he wasn't sure if he was ready. I told him to take his time, to be sure. That's not being unsupportive, that's being honest. You planted doubt in his head. I answered a question my son asked me. Robert finally spoke up. Mom, you made me feel guilty about proposing. Like I was making a mistake. My heart cracked open all over again. Robert, no. I never said you were making a mistake. I never said that. You didn't have to. I could feel your disapproval. I was worried. You'd only been dating for 8 months. I was worried you were rushing because all your friends were getting engaged, not because you were ready. See? Melissa interjected. That right there. That's what we're talking about. You always think you know better. You always think your opinion matters more than what Robert wants. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake them both. Instead, I took a breath. Let me make sure I understand. Because I expressed one concern, one time, when my son specifically asked for my opinion, I was uninvited from his wedding. Is that correct? Neither of them answered. And you, Robert? You thought this was appropriate? You thought erasing your mother from your life was the right way to start your marriage? I thought it would be easier, he said quietly. Melissa was so stressed, and you two weren't getting along, and I thought if we kept it small and simple, everyone would be happier. Everyone except me. I didn't think you'd be this hurt. That broke me. Fully, completely broke me. You didn't think I'd be hurt? Robert, I'm your mother. I raised you alone. I worked 2 jobs to give you everything you needed. I was there for every single moment of your life until you decided I wasn't worth having around anymore. And you didn't think I'd be hurt. Tears were streaming down my face now, and I didn't care. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm sorry, Mom. But Melissa wasn't sorry. I could see it in her face. She thought I was being dramatic. She thought I'd deserved it. We need the money back, Melissa said flatly. We close on the house in 3 weeks. And there it was. They weren't here because they wanted to make things right. They were here because they needed something from me. Just like always. I looked at them both. My son who couldn't meet my eyes and his wife, who met them with cold calculation, and I realized something profound. This wasn't about the wedding anymore. This wasn't even about the money. This was about whether I was going to let them keep treating me like I was disposable. No, I said. Melissa's head snapped up. Excuse me. I said no. You're not getting the money back. Mom, Robert stood up, his face pale. Please. We've apologized. What more do you want? You haven't apologized. Not really. You said you were sorry I was hurt, but you haven't actually acknowledged what you did wrong. You're here because you need something, not because you want to make things right. This is ridiculous, Melissa said, standing up too. We came here like you asked. We explained ourselves. Now give us the money back, or we really will get lawyers involved. Do it, I said calmly. Get your lawyers. Spend thousands of dollars trying to fight a case you won't win. Explain to a judge that you excluded your mother from your wedding and then demanded she give you back money from an account she was legally authorized to access. See how sympathetic they are. You're being vindictive, Melissa spat. I'm being clear. You made a choice. You chose to hurt me. To exclude me. To treat me like I was toxic and problematic when all I ever did was love my son and try to be part of his life. And now you want me to just forgive and forget and hand over $40,000 so you can buy your dream house. That money is for our future, Robert said, his voice breaking. For our life together. And what about my future? What about my life? Did you think about that when you were planning your wedding? When you were laughing at me on the phone? When you were letting Melissa call me toxic on social media? Robert looked genuinely shocked. What? I pulled out my phone, pulled up the screenshots I'd saved. Showed him Melissa's posts, her comments, the narrative she'd constructed. Did you even know she was doing this? I asked. Did you know she was telling all your friends that I was a nightmare? That I was controlling and dramatic and needed to be cut out? He read the posts, his face changing as he scrolled. When he looked up at Melissa, there was something new in his expression. Doubt. Melissa. She was being overbearing, Melissa said defensively. I was venting to my friends. Everyone does that. You were building a case against me, I said. You were making sure that when you excluded me, no one would question it. You turned my son against me with lies. They're not lies. Name one thing I did that was actually controlling. One specific thing. Melissa opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. You asked about the venue, she finally said. I asked if you'd chosen one yet. That's not controlling. That's making conversation. You offered to pay for things. I offered to help if you needed it. That's not controlling. That's being generous. You were always texting Robert, always checking in. I texted him once a week to see how he was doing. That's not controlling. That's being a parent who cares about her child. I watched Robert's face as the reality settled in. He was starting to see it. Starting to understand that maybe, just maybe, the story he'd been told wasn't the whole truth. She made me feel bad about getting engaged, Melissa tried one more time, her voice getting desperate. Robert asked me for advice. I gave it honestly. If that made you feel bad, maybe you should ask yourself why. The room went quiet. Robert sank back onto the couch, his head in his hands. I didn't know, he finally said. Mom, I didn't know she'd been posting that stuff. I swear. But you believed it, didn't you? When she told you I was the problem, you believed her. She said you'd been texting her, criticizing her choices, trying to take over. I never texted her. Not once. Robert, look at me. I waited until he met my eyes. Not once. Check my phone. Check hers. I never sent her a single critical message because I barely communicated with her at all. I was trying to give you both space. He looked at Melissa. Did Mom text you? It wasn't texts exactly. It was the way she looked at me. The tone in her voice. So you made it up, I said. You needed me to be the villain, so you created a version of me that fit your narrative. I didn't make anything up. You made me feel judged. That's not the same thing as me actually judging you. You felt insecure, and instead of dealing with it, you convinced my son to cut me out of his life. Melissa's face was red now, tears forming in her eyes. You don't like me. You never have. And there it was. The real truth, finally. You're right, I said quietly. I don't particularly like you. But I've always been polite to you. I've always welcomed you. I've tried to build a relationship with you because you're important to my son. Not liking someone and being cruel to them are two very different things. I never crossed that line. But you did. Something shifted in the room. Robert was looking at his wife like he'd never quite seen her before. We need to go, Melissa said suddenly, grabbing her purse. Come on, Robert. But he didn't move. "Robert," she said again, more insistent. "Give me a minute," he said quietly. Melissa stared at him for a long moment, then turned and walked out of my house. We heard her car start in the driveway. Heard her drive away. Robert and I sat in silence for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. "I really messed up, didn't I?" he finally said. "Yes. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if you can." He looked up at me, and for the first time since they'd arrived, I saw real remorse in his eyes. Not panic about the money. Not fear of consequences. Actual understanding of what he'd done. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." "I know you are. What do I do?" I sat down beside him, the way I used to when he was little and scared about something. But I didn't put my arm around him. "Not yet. You figure out who you want to be," I said. "You figure out if you want to be the kind of man who cuts his mother out of his life because it's easier. Or if you want to be the kind of man who stands up for what's right, even when it's hard. She's my wife. And I'm your mother. Both those things can be true. But Robert, if she's willing to lie to turn you against me, what else will she lie about? What else is she willing to manipulate?" He didn't answer. Just sat there, staring at his hands. "The money," I finally said. "I'll give it back. But not today. And not without conditions." He looked up. "What conditions?" "First you admit, publicly, that I wasn't the villain. You call your friends, the ones who were at your wedding. You tell them the truth. That I wasn't invited, that it wasn't my choice, that the things Melissa said about me weren't accurate." "I can't do that. It'll make Melissa look bad." Melissa made herself look bad. She lied about me to justify excluding me. That's on her, not you. But you participated in it by staying silent. So this is how you make it right. What else? You go to therapy. Couples therapy with Melissa, if she'll agree. But also individual therapy for you, because Robert, you need to figure out why you were so willing to believe I was the problem. Okay. Anything else? I took a deep breath. This was the hard one. You tell Melissa that from now on, I'm part of your life. Not every day. Not constantly. But birthday dinners. Holidays. Important moments. If she can't accept that, if she keeps trying to push me out, you need to decide where your loyalty lies. That's basically an ultimatum. No, it's a boundary. And it's non-negotiable. I will not spend the rest of my life wondering if I'll be included or excluded based on her mood. Either I'm your mother and I matter, or I'm not and I don't. You choose. He was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. I'll talk to her. I'll make it right. And if she won't? He met my eyes. Then we have bigger problems than a down payment. 3 weeks went by before I heard from him again. 3 weeks of silence that felt different this time. Not the cruel silence of being erased, but the heavy silence of someone trying to figure out their life. When he finally called, it was late on a Sunday night. Mom? Can I come over? Of course. He showed up 20 minutes later, alone. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, shoulders slumped. He sat on my couch and just started talking. I set up the therapy. Individual and couples. We've been 3 times. And it's hard. Really hard. Melissa doesn't think she did anything wrong. She keeps saying she was protecting our relationship, protecting me. The therapist asked her why she felt I needed protecting from my own mother, and she couldn't answer. She just cried. Robert. Let me finish. Please. He took a shaky breath. I called my friends. Not all of them, but the important ones. I told them the truth. That you weren't invited. That the things they'd heard about you weren't accurate. Some of them were shocked. A couple said they'd wondered but didn't want to ask. One of my groomsmen, you remember Dave from college? He said he almost didn't come to the wedding because he thought it was wrong that you weren't there. But he came anyway. Yeah, he came anyway. And he apologized for that. That's something, I suppose. Melissa's not happy with me. She says I'm making her the villain now. That I'm throwing her under the bus to make you happy. Are you? I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just finally seeing things clearly. He looked at me, his eyes red. The therapist asked me something in our last session. She asked if I would have treated you this way if Melissa hadn't pushed for it. If I would have excluded you from my wedding on my own. And I said no. And then she asked why I let someone else make that decision for me. What did you say? I said because it was easier. Because I'm a coward. His voice broke. Because apparently I'm the kind of person who hurts the people who love him most just to avoid conflict. I felt my heart crack open again, but differently this time. Not with pain, but with something closer to hope. You're not a coward, I said softly. You made a mistake. A big one. But you're trying to fix it. I don't know if I can fix it. Melissa says if I keep going to therapy and keep taking your side, she doesn't know if she can stay married to me. The room went very still. She said that. Last night. We had a fight about the money. About the house. We lost the property because we couldn't make the down payment on time. And she blamed you. Said if you'd just given the money back when we asked, we'd be moving in next week. But you know that's not fair. I know. He rubbed his face. I know you gave us chances. You asked us to come here, to talk, to be honest. We did, kind of. But Melissa was still lying, still manipulating. You saw through it. I was just too stupid to see it myself. You're not stupid. You're human. And you love her. Love makes us blind sometimes. Yeah, well, now I'm seeing pretty clearly. And I don't like what I see. He pulled an envelope out of his jacket pocket and handed it to me. What's this? A check. For $40,000. From Melissa's parents. They gave us the down payment money so we could find another house. But I told them I couldn't accept it until I paid you back first. So that's it. That's your money. I'm sorry I let things get this far. I'm sorry about all of it. I took the check but didn't look at it. Robert, I don't want you to destroy your marriage over this. You're not destroying it. She is. Or maybe we are together. I don't know anymore. He stood up, paced to the window. The therapist said something else. She said that healthy relationships don't require you to cut off your family. That if someone's asking you to choose between them and everyone else you love, that's not love. That's control. And what does Melissa say to that? She says the therapist is biased. That she's taking your side because I painted her in a bad light. Did you? I told the truth. That's not painting anyone in a bad light. That's just the truth. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he turned to me, and I saw tears streaming down his face. I missed you, Mom. I missed you so much. Even before the wedding, these past couple years, I felt like I was losing you. Like I had to choose between making Melissa happy and having a relationship with you. And I chose wrong. I chose wrong, and I don't know how to fix it. I stood up and crossed the room and pulled my son into my arms the way I used to when he was little and the world felt too big and scary. You don't have to fix everything today, I whispered. You just have to keep moving forward. Keep telling the truth. Keep doing the work. What if it costs me my marriage? Then maybe that's the price of becoming who you're supposed to be. We stood there for a long time, him crying into my shoulder, me holding him up the way mothers do. That was 6 months ago. Robert and Melissa are still married, but they're separated. Living apart while they continue therapy. I don't know if they'll make it or not. That's not my story to tell. But Robert comes over for dinner once a week now. Sometimes more. We talk about real things, not just surface pleasantries, but the hard stuff. His fears. His mistakes. His hope for the future. He's learning to stand up for himself, to recognize when he's being manipulated, to trust his own judgment. The money is back in his account. I returned it the day after he brought me that check. Not because they paid me back, I would have returned it anyway eventually, but because that was never what this was about. It was about respect. About being seen. About not letting people treat me like I was disposable. A few weeks ago, Melissa called me. It was awkward and brief, but she apologized. Said she'd been doing her own work in therapy and realized she'd been unfair. I don't know if the apology was genuine or strategic. I don't know if she's changed or if she's just saying what the therapist told her to say. But I accepted it. Because forgiveness isn't about them. It's about me. It's about not carrying around bitterness and rage for the rest of my life. I'm not saying we're best friends now. I'm not saying everything is healed. But we're talking. And Robert is learning that he can have both a marriage and a mother. That he doesn't have to choose. Maybe that's enough. Here's what I've learned from all of this. Sometimes the people we love hurt us. Sometimes they hurt us badly. And we have a choice in how we respond. We can let it destroy us, or we can stand up and demand better. We can accept being erased, or we can fight to be seen. I chose to fight. And yes, it was messy. It was painful. I crossed lines that made me uncomfortable. But I don't regret it. Because I taught my son something important, that actions have consequences. That you can't treat people badly and expect them to just take it. That mothers are human beings with feelings and boundaries, not just convenient support systems you can access when needed and ignore when inconvenient. If you're still watching, thank you. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been excluded, betrayed, erased by someone you love, I see you. Your pain is valid. Your anger is justified. And you don't have to accept being treated poorly just because someone shares your blood or your life. Stand up. Set boundaries. Demand respect. You deserve it. Before you go, please check the description box below. There are more stories there. Stories of people who fought back, who found their strength, who refused to be erased. You're not alone. None of us are. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you feel something, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. Tell me your story if you want to. This community, it's built on truth. On shared pain and shared strength. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for letting me be seen.